The call came at 11:52 p.m. Nina Calder was halfway through rinsing shampoo out of her hair when her phone vibrated violently against the edge of the sink. She frowned, blinking water out of her eyes, already annoyed, until she saw the name on the screen, Julian Moretti. Her stomach dropped so fast it made her dizzy. Julian never called this late, ever. If he needed something after hours, it was always an email, curt and perfectly formatted. A midnight call meant one thing. Something had gone wrong. Very wrong. She wrapped herself in a towel and answered on the second ring. "Mr. Moretti? I need you at my place," he said. No greeting, no explanation. His voice was calm, controlled, but clipped. Now. The line went dead. Nina stood frozen in her bathroom, phone still pressed to her ear, heart hammering hard enough to make her ribs ache. 25 minutes later, she was standing in front of the private elevator of a building she'd only ever seen from across the street, Moretti Tower. She'd worked for Julian for almost 2 years as his executive assistant, managing schedules, shielding him from distractions, keeping his life functioning with surgical precision, but she had never been invited here. His personal residence was strictly off limits. Until now. She tugged her hoodie down over her thighs, painfully aware of how underdressed she was. She'd thrown on jeans and the first sweatshirt she grabbed, her hair still damp and loosely knotted at the nape of her neck. The elevator doors slid open silently. Julian was already there. He filled the doorway like a man who had never once doubted his place in the world. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair slightly undone, sleeves of his black shirt rolled up as if he'd been pacing for hours. The top buttons were open, revealing a glimpse of warm skin and the faint edge of a scar she'd never noticed before. His eyes, steel gray, sharp, unreadable, locked onto hers. "Come in," he said. Her pulse jumped. The penthouse was quiet, lit only by the city glow spilling in through floor-to-ceiling windows. Manhattan glittered below them, distant and unreal. The space felt intimate in a way that made her chest tighten. "Sit," Julian said, gesturing to a leather chair across from his desk. Nina obeyed, folding her hands in her lap to hide how badly they were shaking. Julian Moretti wasn't just her boss. He was one of the most powerful men in New York. Wealthy, elusive, rumored to operate in spaces no one could quite define. He never raised his voice, never explained himself, never lost control, which meant the tension radiating off him now scared her more than anger ever could. "I need a favor," he said, leaning against the edge of his desk. Too close. His presence filled the air, steady and overwhelming. "Of course," Nina said automatically. "Whatever you need." His gaze flicked over her face, sharp and searching. "My mother is turning 72 next weekend." Nina nodded. She'd coordinated the gift shipment, a rare piece of art flown in from Europe. "She's hosting the entire family at the estate in Montauk," Julian continued. "A week. No escape." Her stomach tightened. She'd heard stories about the Moretti family. Loud, traditional, invasive. "I told her I'm seeing someone," he said flatly. The words landed like a blow. Nina kept her expression neutral, but something cold twisted behind her ribs. "And now," Julian went on, "she wants to meet her." "Oh, do you need me to arrange?" "I need you to be her." The world tilted. "What?" "I need you to come with me," he said, eyes never leaving hers. "Pretend to be my girlfriend, for the week." Her mouth opened. No sound came out. "I trust you," he said quietly. "You know my family dynamics. You know how to handle pressure. And my mother already likes you. She's spoken to you on the phone enough times to think you're wonderful." Nina's heart was pounding so hard she thought she might pass out. "I'll compensate you," he added. 50,000. The number hit her like a physical force. $50,000. Enough to erase her student loans. Enough to cover her sister's treatments without juggling credit cards and late fees. Enough to breathe. "Why me?" she asked, barely audible. Julian stepped closer. She had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "Because you won't mistake this for something it isn't," he said. "And because you'll walk away when it's over." The words cut deeper than she expected. She nodded slowly. "What would I have to do?" "Act like we're together. Comfortable, affectionate, convincing." Her pulse raced. Affectionate? How? His gaze darkened slightly. Holding hands, touching, kissing. "Nothing you don't consent to." This was insane. And yet, 8 days, he said. "I need an answer now." Nina thought of hospital bills, of sleepless nights, of the way she'd spent 2 years pretending she didn't notice the way Julian's presence affected her. "Okay," she said. Something unreadable flashed across his face. "Good," he said. "We leave Friday. Tomorrow night, you come here. We prepare." Her phone buzzed as she stepped back into the elevator. A wire transfer notification. $25,000 deposited. No turning back. The next evening, she stood in his living room again, this time aware that everything was different. Julian wore jeans and a dark sweater. No armor, no suit. Just a man who looked real. "We need to get comfortable," he said. She swallowed. "Come here." She moved closer. His hand came up, cupping her face with surprising gentleness. "Relax," he murmured. "I won't hurt you." Her heart betrayed her completely. When his hand settled at her waist and pulled her closer, it felt terrifyingly right. "Look at me," he said. She did. And for a moment, the pretending felt dangerously real. Until his phone rang. He pulled away instantly. "I need to take this." The spell shattered. Nina left 10 minutes later, shaking, knowing one thing with absolute certainty. This week was going to change everything, and she wasn't sure she'd survive it with her heart intact. Monday hit her like a punch. Nina Calder stood in front of her bathroom mirror, gripping the edge of the sink like it could keep her steady. She'd slept maybe 2 hours in broken pieces, waking up every time her mind replayed Julian's hand on her face, the warmth of his palm, the command in his voice, the softness underneath it. Practice, she reminded herself. It was practice. A job. A role. Except her body hadn't gotten the memo. Her stomach still fluttered like she'd done something reckless and irreversible. By 8:03 a.m., she was at her desk outside Julian's office, coffee cooling untouched beside her keyboard. She tried to focus on the day's schedule, on calls, on logistics, anything that didn't involve the fact that she'd agreed to spend a week pretending to be in love with a man who could ruin her with a look. Julian's door opened. He stepped out in a charcoal suit that fit him like it had been tailored to his bones. White shirt crisp, tie perfect, hair smoothed back into something sharp and untouchable. The man from Saturday night, barefoot, sleeves rolled, eyes too close to hers, was gone. "Ms. Calder," he said, voice all business. "My office, now." Her stomach flipped. She followed him inside, noticing the way the lock clicked when he shut the door. It was a normal sound. It shouldn't have meant anything, but it did. Julian crossed behind his desk, grabbed a tablet, and spun it toward her. "Look." Nina leaned forward. A headline on a glossy gossip site stared back at her. "Moretti spotted with red-haired beauty. New romance?" Under it was a photo of Julian leaving an upscale restaurant with a woman on his arm. The woman was striking, tall, pale, red hair like fire. Her hand was on his chest in a way that looked practiced, intimate, familiar. Nina's throat tightened before she could stop it. Julian's jaw flexed. "Her name is Sloane Kettering." He said it like it was a nuisance, not a person. "A real estate family," he added. "We had dinner to discuss a deal involving her father." Nina forced her voice to work. "So it was business." "It was business," he confirmed, then stared at the tablet as if it had personally offended him. "But my mother consumes these sites like they're scripture." Nina's chest sank. "She'll see this," Julian continued, "and she'll ask why I'm out with another woman if I'm supposedly taken." "What do you want me to do?" Nina asked, though she already felt the answer coming. Julian's eyes lifted to hers. "We go public." The words landed with a thud. "Today," he added. Nina blinked. "Today? We need to be seen, together, and it needs to look effortless." Her palms dampened. "How?" she asked. Julian moved around his desk with that predatory grace he had, stopping close enough that Nina could smell his cologne. Clean, expensive, something dark beneath it. "Lunch," he said. "There's a new place in Midtown. Photographers camp outside like it's a red carpet. We'll give them a story they can't resist." Nina's heartbeat turned loud. "When?" "Noon," Julian said, eyes flicking over her outfit. Pencil skirt, blouse, tidy, and safe, which gives you time to go home and change. Her cheeks warmed with embarrassment and something else. "I don't have," she started. "I already handled it." Julian lifted his phone and spoke into it like he was issuing a military command. "Mara, I need an outfit delivered. Size small, sophisticated, but unmistakable. Deliver it to this address within the hour." He rattled off Nina's home address. Nina stared at him in shock. "You can't just send someone to my apartment." Julian's gaze sharpened. "You can either do this well or do this poorly. My family will punish me for doing it poorly, and you'll be dragged into the fallout either way." Her heart clenched at the implication. Not just his reputation, her life. "Go," he said. "Take the car." His voice softened slightly at the end, like he realized he'd pushed too hard. "Please." That single word, "please," undid her more than any order. Nina nodded, grabbed her bag, and left. An hour later, she stood in her apartment staring at herself in the mirror like she didn't recognize the woman looking back. The dress was deep, midnight blue, cut to show her collarbones and just enough thigh to make her feel exposed. Her hair had been styled into soft waves. Her makeup was polished but natural, highlighting her eyes. The whole effect was not her. Not the version of her who blended into office walls and took quiet pride in being invisible. This version looked like a woman someone would chase. A knock sounded at her door. The driver. By 11:55 a.m., Nina walked into the office and felt every head turn. Whispers followed her like a tide. Her heels clicked too loudly. Her hands trembled, but she kept her spine straight and her chin lifted as she moved toward her desk. Julian's office door opened precisely at noon. He stepped out and stopped. For one long beat, he simply stared. His eyes traced her face, her throat, the shape of the dress, the lines of her legs, then snapped back up to her eyes like he'd been caught doing something improper. His voice was rough when he finally spoke. "Nina," she swallowed. "Is it too much?" Julian crossed the space in 3 strides, stopping too close. He lifted a hand, fingers brushing a strand of hair near her shoulder, as if he couldn't help himself. "It's perfect," he said quietly. Then lower. "You look devastating." Her breath caught. He offered his arm like it was the most natural thing in the world. Nina slid her hand through the crook of his elbow, acutely aware of the solid muscle beneath his suit. As they walked through the office, every gaze tracked them. Julian's hand shifted from his arm to her lower back, warm, possessive, guiding her. The elevator doors closed. Silence swallowed them. Julian turned, eyes steady. "Ground rules." Nina's heart thumped. "I will touch you," he said. "A lot. It needs to look automatic." She nodded, throat tight. "If anything makes you uncomfortable," Julian continued, "squeeze my hand twice." The fact that he had a plan for her comfort made something soften in her chest. "Okay," she managed. "And Nina," he added, stepping closer. "You don't get to look terrified." Her lips parted. "I'm not." Julian's gaze dipped briefly to her mouth, then lifted. "Lie better." The restaurant was exactly as promised. Packed, loud, full of beautiful people pretending not to stare. Outside, flashes popped like distant lightning. Inside, the hostess recognized Julian instantly and led them to a booth that was both visible and strategically intimate. Julian slid in beside Nina instead of across from her, his thigh pressed against hers. His arm draped over the back of the booth, fingertips lightly brushing her shoulder. "Smile," he murmured against her ear. "They're watching." Nina forced a smile. Julian's hand found hers beneath the table and laced their fingers together. That one simple gesture made Nina's head spin. They ordered. Julian talked easily, as if lunch with her like this was normal, as if it wasn't unraveling her from the inside out. He asked her questions, but not the ones people asked to fill silence. "What do you do when you're not here?" he asked, eyes on her. Nina blinked. What? "When you're not managing my life," Julian clarified. "What do you do?" Nina's fingers tightened around her water glass. "I take care of my sister. I read. I try to sleep." Julian's thumb stroked the side of her hand under the table. Slow, absent, intimate. "What do you want?" he asked. Nina laughed softly like the question was ridiculous. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Julian said, voice lower, "if you could pick any life you wanted, what would it look like?" Nina stared at him. No one asked her that. People asked what she needed to do, what she could handle, what she could sacrifice. No one asked what she wanted. "I want to travel," she admitted, surprising herself with the honesty. "I've never been anywhere. Not really. I want to see places that aren't just responsibilities." Julian watched her like her answer mattered. "Where?" he asked. "Paris. Florence. Somewhere with streets that feel old and alive. Somewhere where no one knows me and I can just be." Julian's gaze softened in a way that made her chest ache. "You will." Nina blinked. "What?" "You will," he repeated, like it was fact. "We'll make that happen. We." The word hit her like a spark to gasoline. Before she could respond, the food arrived. Julian fed her a bite from his plate without asking, holding the fork steady as she took it. The gesture was so domestic, so effortlessly intimate, that Nina forgot the cameras for half a second and simply felt. Julian's eyes never left hers. "You're doing well," he murmured. "Because I'm good at pretending," Nina said before she could stop herself. Julian's jaw tightened slightly. "Don't say it like that." Nina's heart stuttered. Julian leaned closer, lips near her temple. For the cameras, it looked like a whisper. For Nina, it felt like a threat to her sanity. "My mother is going to adore you," he said. "But my sister won't." Nina's stomach tightened. "Your sister?" "Alessia," Julian said, voice flat. "She has a talent for sensing weakness." Nina swallowed. "Then what do we do?" Julian's gaze flicked over her face like he was evaluating the battlefield. "We become real enough that no one can crack it." The words made Nina's pulse jump. They left the restaurant with Julian's arm around her waist, Nina's hand resting lightly on his chest as if it belonged there. Outside, flashes exploded. In the car, Julian checked his phone and exhaled slowly. "It's already online," he said, holding the screen toward her. The new headline read, "Julian Moretti can't keep his hands off his assistant. New power couple?" Nina stared at the photos. In them, she was looking up at Julian like she trusted him completely, like she wanted him, like she was already his. A cold, sick truth slid into place. She wasn't acting in those photos. Not really. Julian's hand brushed her shoulder. "You okay?" Nina forced her voice to be steady. "Fine. Just overwhelmed." Julian's gaze lingered on her face for a moment too long, like he didn't believe her. Then his phone buzzed again. He glanced down, expression tightening. "We need to practice again tonight." Nina's stomach flipped. "Tonight?" "My place," Julian said. 8. Her throat went dry. Practice. That word was becoming a lie she didn't believe anymore. Back at the office, Nina changed into the safe clothes she kept in her desk drawer. Bland, professional, invisible. She tried to sink back into her routine, into emails and scheduling, and being the woman everyone relied on, but no one truly saw. But she could feel Julian watching her through the glass of his office. Not like a boss watching an employee, like a man watching something he wanted. Her phone buzzed. A text from Julian. "Dinner. 8. Wear something that makes you feel like you can handle me." Nina stared at the message, pulse pounding, then set her phone face down like it might burn her. The afternoon crawled. At 6:30, Nina went home and changed again, hands trembling as she zipped a black dress that fit her like a confession. She told herself she was doing it for the role, for the money, for the story they needed to sell. But the truth was uglier. She wanted Julian to look at her the way he had in the elevator. She wanted him to touch her again. At 7:55, she stepped into his penthouse. Julian was waiting near the window, 2 glasses of wine already poured. He looked tense, tie loosened, hair slightly disordered like he'd dragged his hands through it too many times. "Thank you for coming," he said, voice low. Nina tried to keep it light. "What's the emergency tonight? More paparazzi?" Julian's mouth twitched like he wanted to smile but couldn't. "My sister called." Nina's stomach sank. "Alessia?" Julian nodded once. "She's already suspicious." Nina exhaled slowly. "Because you've never brought anyone home?" "Because I've never looked like this," Julian corrected, and his gaze flicked over her like heat. "Not for anyone." Her pulse jumped. "What did you tell her?" Nina asked. Julian took a long drink of wine, then set the glass down with controlled force. "That I kept you private because I didn't want my family's chaos touching you." Nina's throat tightened. "And she believed that?" Julian's eyes locked on hers. "She didn't say she did. She just said she'll be watching." Nina swallowed. "So what do we do?" Julian stepped closer. The city lights behind him made him look like something carved out of shadow. "We stop relying on scripts," he said. "We learn each other." Nina blinked. "Learn each other?" "Couples know things," Julian said. "Not facts you can memorize from my calendar. Real things. Preferences. Habits. Memories. The little details that slip out without thinking." Nina's lips parted. "Okay." Julian set his wine down and held out his hand. "Tell me something about you that I don't know." Nina's chest tightened. "You don't know much about me." Julian's gaze stayed steady. "Then start." Nina hesitated, then spoke before she could overthink it. "I sleep on the right side of the bed." Julian blinked, then nodded once like he was filing it away. "Favorite movie?" Nina huffed a short laugh. "Anything that lets me forget my life for 2 hours." "Pick one," Julian said. Nina bit her lip. "Pride and Prejudice." Julian's eyebrows lifted slightly. "Really? It's ridiculous," Nina muttered, suddenly embarrassed. "It's just the idea of someone seeing you clearly, choosing you anyway." Julian's gaze sharpened, something dangerous and quiet shifting behind it. "And your coffee?" he asked, voice lower. "Sweet," Nina admitted. "Too sweet, like a child." Julian's mouth twitched. "Noted." He moved closer again, close enough that Nina felt heat radiating off him. "My turn," he said. Nina swallowed. "Okay." Julian's eyes stayed on hers. "I hate breakfast meetings because I'm not human until 9. Nina's lips twitched. "I know." Julian's jaw flexed. "I send my mother flowers every Sunday." Nina's breath caught. "I order them." Julian went still for a beat. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then lifted again, as if he was fighting something. "You pay attention," he said, voice quiet. "It's my job," Nina replied automatically, then softened. "And you matter." The words hung in the air. Too honest, too exposed. Julian's face went unreadable. Then he moved, stepping close enough that Nina's back brushed the window glass. We should practice physical, he said, voice rough. Nina's heart slammed against her ribs. Physical? Julian's hand lifted, hovering near her cheek as if asking permission without asking. My family will expect me to touch you, he said. Without hesitation, Nina's breath shook. Julian's fingertips finally brushed her skin, slow, careful, then slid to her jaw, tilting her face up. You need to look like you want it, he murmured, like you're not afraid. Nina's throat tightened. And if I'm both? Julian's eyes darkened. Then we're in trouble. For one unbearable second, Nina thought he was going to kiss her. She felt it in the way his breathing changed, in the slight tension of his grip, in the way his gaze dipped to her lips like he couldn't help it. Then Julian's phone rang. The sound was sharp, cruel. Julian's eyes closed for a beat, like he was furious with the universe. Then he stepped back and answered. Nina stood frozen, skin buzzing where he'd touched her, heart pounding like it had been ripped open. Julian's voice shifted on the call, harder, protective. Alessia, slow down, he said. What happened? Nina watched his expression darken, the calm control cracking into anger. He did what? Julian hissed. No, listen to me. You're not staying there. I'm sending a car. Now. Nina's stomach turned. Julian's hand flexed around his phone. I don't care what he says. Get the kids and leave. I'll handle the rest. He listened, jaw clenched, then softened slightly. You're safe, I promise. When he ended the call, he looked at Nina with eyes that were suddenly heavy with something real. My sister's husband, he said, voice low. He got drunk. He started throwing things. Nina's chest tightened. Is she okay? She's shaken, Julian said, anger sharpening every syllable. But she got the kids out. Nina grabbed her purse automatically. Then let's go. Julian blinked, caught off guard. You don't have to. Nina's voice came out steady. You asked me to be your girlfriend. This is part of it. Julian stared at her for a long second, then nodded once, like he'd just decided something. Okay, he said. Come with me. 20 minutes later, they were in the car heading toward Brooklyn, the city blurring past like a smear of lights. Julian drove with one hand on the wheel, the other gripping Nina's hand hard enough to show how little control he felt. He's always been like this, Julian said quietly. Charming in public, poison in private. Nina's stomach clenched. Why doesn't she leave? Julian's jaw tightened. Because hope is a drug. Nina stared out the window, voice soft. Love shouldn't feel like fear. Julian glanced at her briefly, eyes sharp. No, it shouldn't. They pulled up in front of a modest brownstone. A woman stood on the porch with 2 children pressed into her sides like they were trying to disappear into her body. Julian was out of the car in a second. He crossed the sidewalk fast, pulling his sister into his arms with fierce tenderness. I've got you, he murmured into her hair. You're safe. Nina approached more slowly, crouching to the children's level. Hi, she said gently. I'm Nina. The little boy stared at her with guarded eyes. The little girl clutched a stuffed rabbit like it was armor. It's okay, Nina said softly. You're safe now. Julian's sister, Alessia, looked up at Nina, eyes red-rimmed, wary. Then her gaze flicked to the way Julian's hand found Nina's automatically, tethering himself. So, Alessia said hoarsely, you're her. Nina swallowed. Hi. Alessia studied her like she was trying to read something written between Nina's bones. Then she gave a small, exhausted nod. Okay, let's go. Back in the car, the kids silent in the back seat. Alessia's voice was barely above a whisper. Julian, I'm sorry. Julian's hand tightened around Nina's like he needed the contact to keep from breaking something. Don't apologize. Not to me. At the penthouse, Nina moved like instinct took over. She made hot chocolate without being asked, found blankets, helped the children wash their faces, spoke softly when Alessia's hands shook too hard to hold a mug steady. Julian watched her from the doorway like he didn't know what to do with the sight of her in his life like this, like she belonged. When the kids finally fell asleep in the guest room, Alicia found Nina in the kitchen. Thank you, Alicia said, voice raw. I know this isn't what you signed up for. Nina shook her head gently. Your family needed help. That matters more than plans. Alessia's gaze softened, then sharpened again. Is this fake? The question was direct enough to make Nina's throat tighten. Nina forced herself to hold Alessia's gaze. It started complicated. Alessia stared at her for a beat, then gave a faint, sad smile. That's not an answer. Nina's voice shook. I care about him. Alessia's eyes flicked down, then back up. He cares about you too. Nina's heart lurched. You don't know that. Alessia's expression turned serious. I've known my brother his whole life. He doesn't let people near him. Not anymore. Not since he learned what betrayal costs. Nina's throat tightened. And yet, Alessia continued, he brought you into this. Into the family. Into the mess. That means something. Before Nina could answer, Julian appeared in the doorway, shoulders still tight with anger but eyes tired. "The kids are asleep," he said quietly. Alessia nodded and rose. "I'm going to lie down." Julian watched her go, then turned to Nina. For a moment, he didn't speak. He just looked at her like he didn't know where to put what he felt. "You were incredible," he said finally, voice rough. "You didn't hesitate, you didn't ask questions, you just helped." Nina shrugged weakly. "That's what you do when someone needs you." Julian's gaze darkened. "Not everyone does." Silence fell. Nina tried to read his face, but Julian's expression was a wall with cracks she wasn't sure she was allowed to touch. "I should go," Nina said softly. "You need to be here for your sister." Julian's jaw flexed. "Stay." The word came out like he didn't mean to say it out loud. Nina froze. "Julian, just tonight," he said, voice lower. "It's late. And He paused, like the admission hurt. "I could use the company." Nina should have said no. She knew she should have. But the exhaustion in his eyes undid her. "Okay," she whispered. Relief flickered across his face, quick and raw. He showed her to a guest room that was bigger than her entire apartment. A bathroom stocked with everything she could need. A closet already holding neatly folded clothes in her size, as if he'd anticipated she might stay someday. At the door, Julian stopped. Nina turned back. "Are you okay?" Julian looked down at his hands, then lifted his eyes to hers. "I am now," he said quietly. "Having you here, it helps." Nina's breath caught. Julian reached for her hand and lifted it, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. Tender, deliberate, devastating. The gesture wasn't for cameras. There were none. It was just him. Nina's throat tightened, her heart sliding into dangerous territory. "Good night, Nina," Julian murmured. "Good night," she whispered back. When he left, Nina sat on the edge of the bed, fingers pressed to her chest, mind spinning. This was supposed to be acting, but nothing about tonight felt like performance. And in 4 days, she would stand beside Julian in front of his entire family, pretending to be the woman he loved. The problem was, she wasn't sure she was pretending anymore. Nina woke to sunlight spilling across unfamiliar walls and the low, comforting sound of movement somewhere beyond the door. For a few disoriented seconds, she forgot where she was. Then memory flooded back all at once. Julian's penthouse, Alessia, and the kids sleeping down the hall. The way Julian had kissed her knuckles like it meant something he wasn't ready to say out loud. She sat up slowly, heart already racing. Her phone read 7:12 a.m. A soft knock sounded at the door. "Nina?" Julian's voice, quiet, careful. "Yes," she said, clearing her throat. "Come in." The door opened and Julian stepped inside, holding a mug of coffee and a small shopping bag. He looked different this morning. Jeans, a fitted navy t-shirt, hair still damp from a shower, casual, real. The man from the office didn't exist right now. "I thought you might not want to go to work in last night's dress," he said, setting the mug on the nightstand. "Clothes should fit. If they don't, I'll send them back." She stared at him, overwhelmed by the simplicity of the gesture. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," he replied without hesitation. His eyes lingered on her face. Not assessing, not commanding, just seeing. "You look good like this," he added quietly. Unfiltered. Heat crawled up her neck. "I look half asleep." "Exactly." He smiled faintly, then stepped back like he realized how close he'd gotten. "Alessia's still sleeping? Kids are up?" Pancakes were acceptable. Nina smiled. High praise. Julian hesitated at the door. "Last night, thank you for everything." She met his gaze. "You don't have to thank me for showing up." His jaw tightened, something complicated flickering behind his eyes. "Most people don't." He left before she could respond. Nina changed quickly, heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with nerves. When she stepped into the kitchen, the children were already at the table. Syrup everywhere. Julian leaning against the counter watching them with tired affection. "Morning," she said. The little girl lit up. "You're back." Julian glanced over, expression softening in a way that made Nina's chest ache. Breakfast felt dangerously normal. Later, in the car on the way to work, Julian held her hand without thinking, thumb brushing over her knuckles like it belonged there. He didn't let go until they pulled up to the building. "Tonight," he said quietly, "we need to talk. No pretending. No rehearsing." Her pulse spiked. "About what?" "Us." The word landed heavy. The day crawled. Emails blurred. Conversations passed without meaning. Nina could feel the shift. People watching her differently now, whispers threading through the office. Photos from yesterday had spread everywhere. Julian Moretti's assistant wasn't invisible anymore. At 7 that night, Nina stood once again in Julian's penthouse. This time alone with him. No family, no cameras, no role to play. He cooked. Real cooking. Pasta simmering, music low. He moved around the kitchen like he belonged there, like this was his life, not just a controlled environment. They ate at the table, instead of the couch. "Tell me about your parents," Julian said softly, halfway through dessert. Nina froze, then exhaled. "My dad taught history. He loved stories. My mom worked nights at the hospital. She smelled like antiseptic and lavender." Julian listened, didn't interrupt. "They died when I was 20, Nina continued. "Car accident." One phone call and everything changed. Julian's hand covered hers. "I'm sorry. I didn't fall apart," she said quietly. "I just became someone who survives." Julian nodded slowly. "I know that version of a person." Silence settled, thick and intimate. "Nina," he said after a moment, standing. "Come here." She followed him instinctively. He stopped close, too close. Hands warm on her waist, not possessive, just grounding. "This started as a lie," he said. "I know that. And I don't know when it stopped being one." Her heart hammered. "Julian, I'm not asking you to decide anything," he interrupted gently. "I just need to know if you feel it too." She swallowed. "Feel what?" "This," he said, voice rough, forehead resting against hers. "Whatever this is." Nina closed her eyes. "I've felt it longer than I want to admit." His breath shuddered. He kissed her. Not like practice, not like performance. Slow, intentional. Like he was afraid she'd disappear if he moved too fast. Her hand slid up his chest, fingers gripping fabric like an anchor. When they broke apart, Julian rested his forehead against hers. "I don't want to pretend anymore." "Neither do I." They left for the Hamptons 2 days later. The estate was massive, breathtaking, intimidating, and Julian's mother, Rosa, was warmth incarnate. She took Nina's hands, studied her face, smiled like she already knew the ending. "You make him lighter," Rosa said simply. "That's all I need to know." The weekend unfolded in laughter, family dinners, shared stories. Julian never left Nina's side, not once. At the birthday dinner, in front of everyone, Julian spoke. He didn't plan it. He just told the truth. He talked about meeting Nina, about not seeing what was right in front of him, about fear and timing and choosing wrong things until something right refused to be ignored. "I love her," he said, voice steady, eyes locked on hers. "And I don't intend to let that be temporary." Nina cried openly. So did Rosa. Later, under the stars, Julian pulled Nina close. "I meant every word." "I know," she whispered. Life after the Hamptons wasn't quiet, but it was real. They navigated the office carefully, set boundaries, earned respect. Julian made it clear, professionally, publicly, that Nina was there because she was exceptional. 6 weeks later, at a quiet restaurant, Julian told her the truth. He'd loved her long before he asked her to pretend. "I was afraid," he admitted, "so I hid behind a plan." She smiled through tears. "It was a stupid plan. Worst one I've ever had." He slid a simple ring onto her finger. "Not a proposal, a promise." She said yes. 3 months later, on the same beach where Julian learned to swim, he asked her to marry him. She said yes again. What started as pretending became the realest thing either of them had ever known. And every once in a while, when Nina caught Julian watching her like he still couldn't believe she was real, she remembered the night he called her into his office after midnight and smiled, grateful she'd said yes.